incredibly vain, and possessed a magical mirror that she would often consult. Every day she would stand before it and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And each time the mirror would reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." Hearing this would make the queen smile with satisfaction, as she loved being known as the most beautiful in the land. But as Snow White grew older, her beauty blossomed more and more, and her kind nature made her even more radiant. One day, when the queen asked her mirror the usual question, she was shocked when it replied, "My queen, you are beautiful, it's true, but Snow White is even fairer than you." The queen's heart burned with jealousy and anger. She could not bear the thought of anyone being more beautiful than her, especially not Snow White. In a fit of rage, the queen called for her huntsman and commanded him to take Snow White into the forest, never to return. "Bring back proof that she is gone," she demanded coldly. The huntsman, though loyal to the queen, felt sorry for Snow White, for he knew she was innocent and kind. When they were deep in the forest, he told Snow White of the queen's wicked plan. "Run, Snow White, run far away and never return to the castle," he said, sparing her life. Tears streamed down Snow White's face as she ran through the dark forest. The branches seemed to reach out like claws, and strange shadows danced under the moonlight, making her tremble with fear. Exhausted and frightened, she finally collapsed in a clearing where she lay down to rest. As dawn broke, she awoke to the sound of cheerful birds and noticed a tiny cottage nestled among the trees. It was a charming little house with a thatched roof, flower-filled window boxes, and a tiny chimney puffing out a gentle stream of smoke. Snow White, curious and in need of shelter, carefully opened the door and peeked inside. The cottage was cozy but quite messy, with 7 small chairs around a table and 7 little beds lined up against the walls. "Whoever lives here must be very small," she thought. Seeing that the place was untidy, she decided to clean up as a way of thanking the owners for letting her rest there. She swept the floor, dusted the furniture, and even prepared a simple meal from what little food she could find. As evening approached, the owners of the cottage returned. They were 7 dwarves who worked in the nearby diamond mines. Their names were Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, Bashful, Sneezy, and Dopey. Each dwarf had his own unique personality, and they were all very hardworking and kind-hearted. When they entered their home, they were surprised to find it spotless. "Who has been in our house?" Doc, the eldest dwarf, wondered aloud. The dwarfs began searching the cottage and soon discovered Snow White asleep across 3 of their tiny beds. Startled, they woke her gently, and she sat up, feeling both nervous and relieved. She explained her story, telling them about her stepmother, the queen, and how she had narrowly escaped. The dwarfs felt sorry for Snow White and offered her a place to stay, provided she helped them with chores around the house. Snow White gladly agreed, grateful to have found such kind friends. Days turned into weeks, and Snow White lived happily with the dwarfs. They would go off to the mines each day, and she would wave goodbye, reminding them to be careful. Then she would clean, cook, and tend to the little garden outside the cottage. She grew to love the dwarfs dearly, and they adored her in return. Snow White's laughter and warmth filled their home with joy. However, back at the castle, the wicked queen had once again asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" To her horror, the mirror replied, "Though you, my queen, are fair, there is someone with skin like snow, lips red as a rose, and hair black as ebony, who is now the fairest of them all, Snow White, who dwells with the 7 dwarfs." Enraged that Snow White was still alive, the queen devised a sinister plan to get rid of her once and for all. Using her dark magic, the queen disguised herself as an old peddler woman. She prepared a basket of poisoned apples, their red skin shining temptingly. and made her way into the forest toward the dwarf's cottage. When Snow White was alone, the queen, disguised as the old woman, knocked on the door. "Good day, my dear. Would you like to try one of my delicious apples?" Snow White, always polite and trusting, did not suspect anything and accepted the apple. She took a bite, and as soon as the piece touched her lips, she fell to the floor, unconscious. The wicked queen cackled with delight, certain that she was now the fairest in the land once more. She disappeared back to the castle, confident her plan had worked. That evening, when the dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White lying on the floor, still and pale. They tried everything they could to wake her, but it was no use. Heartbroken, they laid her in a glass coffin and placed it on a hill surrounded by flowers, where they kept watch over her day and night, mourning the loss of their dear friend. One day, a prince from a neighboring kingdom was riding through the forest when he came upon the dwarfs guarding the glass coffin. He was immediately struck by Snow White's beauty and sorrow for her tragic fate. The dwarfs told him her story, and he felt a deep compassion for the lovely princess who had been wronged. With great gentleness, the prince lifted Snow White and kissed her forehead, bidding her a heartfelt farewell. But as he did so, the piece of poisoned apple dislodged from her throat, and Snow White's eyes fluttered open. She sat up, looking around with wonder, as the dwarfs and the prince cheered with joy. Overcome with happiness, Snow White thanked the dwarfs for all their kindness and bravery. The prince, who had fallen in love with her at first sight, asked Snow White if she would return to his kingdom with him. Snow White looked to the dwarfs, and with their warm blessing, she accepted. The dwarfs promised to visit her often, and with a tearful goodbye, they sent her off with the prince. Snow White and the prince rode back to his castle, where they were married in a grand celebration. The kingdom rejoiced, and Snow White's kind heart and gentle spirit won the love of all the people. She never forgot her 7 little friends in the forest, who had shown her true kindness and loyalty. And as for the wicked queen, she was so furious upon learning of Snow White's happiness that she fled the kingdom, never to be seen again. Snow White and her prince lived happily ever after, and the dwarfs continued their lives in the cottage, knowing they would always have a special place in her heart. And thus, in a land of love, friendship, and kindness, peace reigned, and Snow White's story was told for generations as a tale of courage, kindness, and the power of true beauty. Ella's Christmas Quest, Finding Santa to Say Thank You. The snowflakes drifted gently from the sky, blanketing the village in shimmering white. In the heart of this village lived a little girl named Ella. She was 7 years old, with golden curls that peeked from under her knitted hat, and eyes as bright as the North Star. Ella had a heart full of kindness, and more than anything, she believed in the magic of Christmas. Every year, Santa Claus left the most thoughtful gifts for Ella beneath the Christmas tree. But this year, something felt different. Ella didn't just want to receive presents. She wanted to give something back. She wanted to thank Santa in person for all the joy he had brought her and the other children. So, on the night before Christmas, Ella made up her mind. She was going to find Santa. Slipping into her warmest coat and boots, Ella tiptoed downstairs. The fireplace glowed softly, casting long shadows across the room. Her parents were fast asleep, and her little brother snored gently in his crib. Ella wrapped a small box in red paper, a gift for Santa filled with homemade cookies she had baked with her mother. As she stepped outside, the snow crunched beneath her feet. The village square was quiet, save for the twinkling lights that adorned the trees. Ella knew from stories that Santa lived far, far away at the North Pole. She imagined his sleigh soaring through snowy clouds and his workshop bustling with elves. But how was she supposed to get there? Did she need magic, or would her determination be enough? Her first stop was the home of Mr. Whiskers, the village's oldest cat. Legend had it that Mr. Whiskers had once seen Santa flying through the sky. "Do you know how I can find Santa?" she whispered. The old cat yawned lazily and flicked his tail towards the forest at the edge of the village. Ella took it as a sign and set off toward the trees, her footprints vanishing behind her. The forest was enchanting but eerie under the moonlight, with shadows dancing across the snow and the faint rustling of leaves echoing through the quiet night. The crisp air carried the scent of pine, and each step crunched softly beneath Ella's boots, the sound magnified in the stillness. Icicles hung like chandeliers from the branches, and the wind whispered through the pines. As Ella ventured deeper, she heard soft footsteps in the snow. Turning around quickly, she found herself face to face with a small reindeer. "Hello there," Ella said softly, reaching out her hand. The reindeer nuzzled her palm, and Ella noticed a tiny bell hanging from its neck. "You must be one of Santa's reindeer. Can you take me to him?" The reindeer tilted its head, as if considering her request, then began to trot ahead. Ella followed, her excitement growing with each step. They walked for what felt like hours until they reached a frozen lake, shimmering like glass under the stars. But as they crossed, the ice began to creak and groan. Ella's heart pounded. She tried to move carefully, but a loud crack split the silence. Ella gasped as her foot slipped and she tumbled onto the ice. The reindeer quickly rushed to her side, nudging her gently to stand. "Thank you," she breathed, steadying herself. They hurried across the lake, reaching the other side just as the ice splintered behind them. On the other side of the lake stood a tall, crooked tree, its branches glimmering with frost. Nestled in its hollow was a small owl, blinking at Ella with wide, wise eyes. "Excuse me, Mr. Owl," Ella said politely. "I'm looking for Santa. Do you know where I might find him?" The owl hooted softly, fluttering down to a lower branch. He pointed his wing towards the mountains that loomed in the distance. Ella glanced at the towering peaks, feeling a flicker of doubt. Could she really climb those mountains all by herself? But just as she began to worry, the reindeer lowered itself to the ground, inviting Ella to climb onto its back. She carefully climbed up, and the reindeer began to gallop towards the mountains. The wind rushed past her cheeks, and Ella clung tightly, feeling both thrilled and nervous. As they reached the base of the mountains, a snowstorm began to swirl around them. The path ahead was barely visible, and the reindeer slowed to a cautious walk. Snowflakes stung Ella's face, and her fingers began to grow numb. "We have to keep going," she whispered, though part of her wished she were back at home by the fire. Just as her hope began to waver, Ella felt the cold seeping deeper into her bones and doubt creeping into her heart. Her eyes filled with tears, and she wondered if she had come all this way for nothing. But then a warm light flickered through the storm, cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope. Ella squinted, and to her amazement, she saw a small cottage nestled in the snow. Smoke curled from its chimney, and golden light poured from the windows. The reindeer led Ella to the front door, and she hesitated for a moment before knocking softly. The door creaked open, and standing there was none other than Mrs. Claus. "Oh, my dear," Mrs. Claus exclaimed, ushering Ella inside. "What brings you out in this cold night?" Ella removed her hat, her cheeks rosy from the cold. "I'm looking for Santa. I wanted to thank him in person." Mrs. Claus smiled warmly and handed Ella a cup of hot cocoa. "Santa is out delivering presents right now, but he'll be back very soon. Why don't you warm up by the fire?" Ella nodded gratefully, sinking into a cozy armchair. The warmth of the fire seeped into her bones, and her eyelids began to droop. Just as she was about to drift off, the door swung open with a burst of cold air. Santa himself stepped inside. His red suit dusted with snowflakes. His eyes twinkled like stars, and his hearty chuckle filled the room with warmth. "Well, well, what do we have here?" Santa said, his voice gentle but resonant. "Ella, isn't it? You've come a long way. What brings you all the way to the North Pole on this chilly night?" Ella sprang to her feet, clutching the small red box in her hands. Her cheeks flushed as she shyly held it out to him. "I wanted to thank you, Santa," she said earnestly. "You've brought so much happiness to me and so many others. I made you these cookies as a gift." Santa's face lit up with joy as he carefully accepted the box. He opened it to reveal the beautifully decorated cookies. "Why, Ella, these are wonderful," he exclaimed. "But even more wonderful is your kind heart. It's not often that someone goes on such a brave journey just to say thank you." Mrs. Claus beamed from her seat by the fire. "You've done something truly special, dear. The spirit of Christmas isn't just about receiving gifts, it's about spreading love and gratitude, just like you have." Ella felt a warmth in her heart that rivaled the fire crackling in the hearth. She looked up at Santa and said, "I just wanted you to know how much you mean to all of us. You bring magic into our lives, and I wanted to bring a little magic to you, too." Santa knelt down and placed a gentle hand on Ella's shoulder. "Thank you, Ella," he said. "You've reminded me why I do what I do. The joy of Christmas isn't just in the presents. It's in moments like these, filled with love and kindness." With a wink, Santa handed Ella a golden bell from his sleigh. "Keep this with you, Ella. Whenever you hear its ring, remember the magic of this night and the power of giving." Ella nodded, her eyes shining with happiness. She hugged Santa and Mrs. Claus tightly, feeling as if she were in the warmest place on earth. When it was time for her to leave, the reindeer was waiting patiently outside to take her home. As Ella climbed onto its back, she looked over her shoulder at Santa and Mrs. Claus waving from the doorway. "Merry Christmas!" she called out. "And a Merry Christmas to you, Ella," Santa replied, his voice carrying through the frosty air. As the reindeer soared across the snowy landscape, Ella held the golden bell close to her heart. She knew she would always treasure this adventure and the magical lesson it had taught her, that the true spirit of Christmas is found in love, gratitude, and the joy of giving. The City Mouse and the Village Mouse. Once upon a time, there were two cousins, a city mouse and a village mouse. They lived far apart, one in the bustling city and the other in the peaceful countryside. Although they were cousins, their lives were very different. One day, the village mouse received a letter from the city mouse inviting him to visit the city. "Come see the wonders of city life," the city mouse wrote. The village mouse, curious and excited, packed his little bag and set off for the city. After a long journey, the village mouse arrived at the city mouse's home, which was located inside a grand building with tall walls and bright lights. The city mouse welcomed him warmly and said, "You must be hungry after your long trip. Let me show you the grand feasts we have here in the city." The city mouse led his cousin to a large dining room, where they found all sorts of delicious treats: cheese, bread, fruits, and cakes. all left behind by the humans who lived there. The village mouse's eyes grew wide with amazement. He had never seen so much food in his life. "Wow!" exclaimed the village mouse. "Is this all for us?" The city mouse chuckled. "Of course. Here in the city, we have everything we could ever want. Eat as much as you like." The two mice began to nibble on the feast. The village mouse was just about to take a big bite of cheese when suddenly he heard a loud noise. Bang! "What was that?" the village mouse asked, startled, his little heart racing. "Oh, nothing to worry about," the city mouse replied casually. "That's just the humans coming back. We should hide." Quickly, the city mouse dragged the village mouse behind a large cupboard. They waited in silence as the humans stomped around the room, cleaning up the food they had left. The village mouse trembled, frightened by the noise and the fast movements of the humans. After a while, the humans left the room and the city mouse popped his head out. "Come on, it's safe now," he whispered. The village mouse hesitated, his heart still pounding. They crept back to the table to continue their meal. But just as they started nibbling again, a cat appeared out of nowhere. Its sharp eyes spotted the mice, and it started creeping toward them. "Run!" the city mouse squeaked. The two mice scurried as fast as they could, darting into a tiny hole in the wall. The village mouse was panting heavily. "Do you have to run like this all the time?" he asked, trembling. The city mouse shrugged. "Oh, it's just part of life in the city. You get used to it." The village mouse shook his head. "I don't know if I could ever get used to this," he said quietly. The next morning, the village mouse decided it was time to return to his peaceful countryside home. Before he left, the city mouse offered him another meal, but the village mouse politely declined. "Thank you for showing me the city," the village mouse said. "You have plenty of food, and it's very exciting here. But it's also very dangerous. I would rather eat simple food in peace than enjoy feasts in fear." The city mouse was puzzled. "But the city has so much to offer. Why would you want to go back to the quiet village?" The village mouse smiled gently and replied, "It's true that you have a lot here, but I'd rather live a simple life without always looking over my shoulder." "In my village, I don't have to worry about cats or humans. I may not have fancy food, but I have peace, and that's worth more to me than all the feasts in the world." With that, the village mouse waved goodbye and set off on his journey back home. As he traveled, he thought about how much he appreciated the quiet countryside, where he could live without fear. When he arrived home, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. The fields were quiet, the air was fresh, and there was no need to hide from anyone. The village mouse sat down to enjoy a simple meal of seeds and grains, feeling grateful for the peaceful life he had. And from that day on, the village mouse never again wished for the exciting but dangerous life of the city. He was content with his quiet home and his simple meals, knowing that true happiness comes from peace, not luxury. Moral of the story: it is better to live a simple and peaceful life than to have riches and live in constant fear. Peace of mind is more valuable than wealth or luxury. The Magical Milk Pot and the Village of Plenty. In a small, quiet village nestled between green hills, there lived a kind and hard-working girl named Lena. She was known throughout the village for her gentle heart and willingness to help others. Although she and her mother were poor, they always found joy in the little they had. One day, while Lena was out gathering firewood near the edge of the forest, she stumbled upon something strange hidden among the bushes. There, glimmering in the sunlight, was an old dusty milk pot. It looked ordinary except for a small engraved symbol of a cow on its side. Curious, Lena carefully picked it up and brought it home. When she arrived, her mother laughed at the sight of the old pot. "Oh, Lena, it's just a rusty old thing. We have no milk to put in it." Lena, being an optimist, said, "You never know, Mama. Maybe it can still be of use." She scrubbed the pot clean and set it on their small kitchen shelf. The next morning, as Lena was preparing for the day, she noticed something incredible. The pot was overflowing with fresh, creamy milk. Shocked, Lena called her mother over, and they stared at the pot in amazement. "Where did all this milk come from?" her mother asked, bewildered. "I don't know. It was empty last night," Lena replied. They didn't know it then, but they had discovered a magical milk pot that could never run out. The milk kept flowing, no matter how much they took from it. At first, Lena and her mother were overjoyed. They drank as much as they could, made cheese, butter, and yogurt. Soon they began to sell the milk to their neighbors and started earning more money than ever before. But as the days passed, Lena noticed something strange. The more they kept the milk for themselves, the more the milk pot seemed to slow down. Worried, Lena decided to talk to the village elder, Grandma Suri, who was known for her wisdom. "Grandma Suri," Lena said, "I found a magical milk pot that gives us endless milk, but lately it's been giving less and less. Do you know why?" Grandma Suri smiled gently. "Ah, my dear Lena, this pot has chosen you because of your kindness. It gives generously, but it must not be used out of greed. The magic will fade if the milk is not shared with others." Lena understood immediately. She rushed home and told her mother about Grandma Suri's advice. From that day forward, they started sharing their magical milk with the entire village. Every morning, Lena would take the pot from house to house, making sure everyone had enough milk for their needs. The milk pot never slowed down again, no matter how much they gave away. As the weeks passed, the village began to thrive. With plenty of milk for everyone, the villagers became stronger and happier. They no longer had to worry about hunger, and they helped one another more than ever before. But one day, a rich merchant from a nearby town heard about the magical milk pot and came to Lena's home. He offered her a large bag of gold coins in exchange for the pot. Lena thought about the gold and how it could make her and her mother rich. But then she remembered Grandma Suri's words. If she gave the pot to someone who only wanted it for themselves, the magic would surely fade, and the village would return to its old ways. No, thank you, Lena said firmly. This pot is meant for everyone, not just for one person to profit from. Angry and frustrated, the merchant stormed off, but Lena felt proud of her decision. She knew she had made the right choice. Time went on, and the village continued to prosper. One day, Lena was walking back from the fields when she met a young boy, barefoot and ragged, standing at the edge of the village. He looked hungry and weak, so Lena quickly offered him some milk. The boy smiled gratefully, but then something miraculous happened. As soon as he drank the milk, his rags transformed into fine clothes, and he grew taller and stronger. Lena stared in wonder as the boy revealed his true identity. I am the spirit of kindness, sent to test the hearts of those I meet. Your generosity and selflessness have been noticed. Because you chose to share the milk and refuse the riches, you have passed the test. Lena gasped. A test? But I didn't do anything special. I just shared what was given to me. The spirit smiled. That's exactly why you've been rewarded. True kindness expects nothing in return. From now on, not only will the milk pot always stay full, but your village will continue to prosper for generations. There will always be enough for everyone. With that, the spirit vanished into the air, leaving Lena both amazed and grateful. She ran back to the village and told everyone what had happened. From that day on, the villagers made sure to always share their blessings, knowing that kindness and generosity were the keys to a happy life. Lena and her mother lived peacefully, always taking care of their neighbors and teaching the children the importance of giving. And as for the magical milk pot, it continued to fill itself every morning, ensuring that no one in the village ever went hungry again. Generosity and kindness create abundance. When we share what we have, even when it seems like little, it grows into something far greater. Selflessness brings happiness to both the giver and the receiver. Ellie and the Golden Oak. Ellie loved Thanksgiving. She adored the scent of pumpkin pie wafting through the house, the glow of candles on the dinner table, and the laughter of her family gathered around. But this year felt different. Her older brother Jason was studying abroad and couldn't make it home. Her mom and dad were both busy with work, rushing to fit preparations into their hectic schedules. The house felt quieter than usual, and Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Sitting on the porch swing, she hugged her knees to her chest and watched the leaves blow across the yard. Her grandmother, Nana B., stepped outside, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She handed one to Ellie and sat down beside her. "What's troubling you, sweetheart?" Nana B. asked. Ellie sighed. "Thanksgiving doesn't feel the same this year. It feels empty." Nana B. smiled gently. "Maybe you're looking for Thanksgiving in the wrong places," she said. She reached into her sweater pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Here," she said, handing it to Ellie. "What's this?" Ellie asked, unfolding the paper. "It's an old story," Nana B. said. "Something my grandmother told me when I was your age. It's about the golden oak." Ellie smoothed out the paper and read the title, "The Story of the Golden Oak." Beneath it was a handwritten tale about a magical oak tree hidden deep in the forest. According to the story, the oak was planted long ago by a child who wanted to preserve the spirit of Thanksgiving. On this holiday, the tree would come alive to share its wisdom with those in need. Ellie looked up at her grandmother, eyes wide. "Do you think it's real?" "Why don't you find out?" Nana B. said with a wink. That was all the encouragement Ellie needed. She grabbed her jacket and flashlight and set off toward the woods. The late afternoon sun was dipping low, casting a warm golden light over the trees. The air was crisp, and leaves crunched underfoot as Ellie ventured deeper into the forest. After walking for what felt like a long time, Ellie came to a clearing. In the center stood a magnificent oak tree. Its trunk was wide and sturdy, and its branches stretched toward the sky, draped with leaves that shimmered gold, even in the fading light. Ellie approached the tree, her heart racing. "Are you the golden oak?" she whispered. The tree's branches rustled, though there was no wind. A warm, deep voice spoke, wrapping around her like a hug. "Yes, Ellie, why have you come?" Ellie hesitated, then poured out her heart. She told the tree how empty Thanksgiving felt this year without Jason, how her parents seemed too busy, and how the holiday didn't feel special anymore. The golden oak listened patiently, then spoke. "Thanksgiving is not about what's missing, Ellie. It's about seeing the blessings already around you. Let me show you." Before Ellie could respond, a golden light surrounded her. The world blurred and shifted, and when the light faded, Ellie found herself standing in a cozy, bustling kitchen. A family worked together to prepare a simple meal, laughing and chatting as they chopped vegetables and stirred pots. "Who are they?" Ellie asked aloud. "They are neighbors who came together to share what they have," the oak's voice explained. "Even when times are hard, they find joy in each other's company." The scene changed, and Ellie was now in a park where children were playing tag among the autumn leaves. Their cheeks were flushed with excitement, and their laughter echoed through the crisp air. "These children have no toys," the oak said, "but their hearts are full of gratitude for the simple joys of life." Next, Ellie found herself in a small living room. An elderly man sat in an armchair, smiling as a young girl brought him a cup of tea. The warmth in his eyes as he took the cup made Ellie's heart swell. Kindness, no matter how small, creates gratitude, the oak said softly. Finally, Ellie was back in the clearing, standing before the majestic golden oak. Its branches swayed gently, and its golden leaves seemed to glow brighter against the twilight sky. "Do you see now, Ellie?" the tree asked. "Gratitude isn't found in the things you think you've lost. It's in the love and kindness that surround you every day." Ellie nodded, her heart feeling lighter than it had in weeks. "Thank you," she whispered. The oak's branches rustled as if in reply, and Ellie turned to make her way home. When she stepped into the house, she found her mom peeling potatoes at the counter and her dad setting the table. They looked up, surprised to see her smiling. "Can I help?" Ellie asked eagerly. Her mom handed her a bowl of mashed sweet potatoes. "Of course, we could use an extra pair of hands." Ellie jumped in, helping with the food, hanging decorations, and even making name cards for the table. She found an old drawing Jason had made when he was little and placed it in the center of the table as a tribute. That evening, as her family gathered around the table, Ellie suggested they share something they were thankful for. Her dad spoke about how happy he was to have this time together, despite their busy schedules. Her mom shared her gratitude for the simple joys of family. When it was Ellie's turn, she smiled and said, "I'm thankful for realizing how much love is all around me, even when things feel different." Later that night, as Ellie lay in bed, she looked out her window toward the woods. The silhouette of the golden oak was just visible under the starry sky, its golden leaves shimmering faintly. "Thank you, golden oak," Ellie whispered. The tree's leaves rustled gently in the breeze, and Ellie drifted off to sleep, her heart filled with warmth and gratitude. Bella and the Heart of the Beast. Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by vast forests, lived a kind and curious young girl named Bella. She was known for her love of reading and her warm heart. Bella had two older sisters who often teased her for her daydreams and love of adventure, but Bella didn't mind. She found joy in the simple things, like helping others and exploring the woods near their home. One day, their father, an inventor, set off to sell his new creation in a nearby town. On his journey, he got lost in the woods during a fierce storm. He stumbled upon a grand, mysterious castle hidden deep in the forest. The castle seemed abandoned, but when he entered, it magically came to life, offering him warmth and food. The father was grateful but also curious about who owned the castle. He wandered around and came across a beautiful garden filled with vibrant flowers. As he was about to leave, he noticed a single glowing blue rose. Remembering Bella's love for flowers, he picked the rose as a gift for her. Suddenly, a fierce roar echoed through the castle. Out of the shadows emerged a huge beast with glowing eyes and sharp fangs. "How dare you steal from me?" the beast growled. "Are you girl?" "No, you will pay for this theft." Terrified, the father pleaded for mercy. The beast, however, gave him a choice. Either the father would remain as a prisoner forever, or one of his daughters must come in his place. Reluctantly, the father returned home and told Bella and her sisters about his encounter. Without hesitation, Bella decided to go in his place, believing she could befriend the beast and find a way out of this situation. Bella arrived at the castle, determined to be brave. The beast was cold and distant at first, but as days turned into weeks, Bella realized that beneath his rough exterior, he was lonely. The castle was magical, but it was also a prison for the beast, who had been cursed by a powerful sorceress. He would remain a beast until someone saw beyond his appearance and loved him for who he truly was. Bella and the beast began to bond over their love for books, storytelling, and learning. The beast showed Bella his grand library, and they spent hours reading and talking about adventures. Bella could sense that the beast had a kind heart, but the beast struggled with his own insecurities. He believed no one could ever love him as a beast. One evening, while walking in the castle garden, Bella asked the beast why he was cursed. The beast explained that long ago he had been a vain and selfish prince who cared only for his looks and wealth. One day, an old woman came to his door asking for help. He refused her, thinking she was beneath him. But the woman was a powerful sorceress, and she cursed him to live as a beast until he learned the true meaning of love and kindness. Bella was saddened by the story, but encouraged the beast not to dwell on the past. "It's never too late to change," she said. "Your past mistakes don't define who you are now." As Bella and the beast grew closer, a new problem arose. Bella missed her family, especially her father, who had fallen ill. The beast, despite his growing feelings for Bella, allowed her to leave the castle to care for her father, giving her a magical mirror to remember him by. Bella promised to return, but her sisters, jealous of her newfound happiness and wealth, tricked her into staying longer than she intended. During Bella's absence, the Beast began to lose hope. He feared she would never return, and as days passed, he grew weaker. The castle's magic started to fade as the curse took hold of him once again. Realizing her sister's trickery and sensing the Beast's distress through the magical mirror, Bella rushed back to the castle. She arrived just in time to find the Beast lying in the garden, too weak to move. Tears filled her eyes as she knelt beside him. "You're not just a beast," Bella said softly. "You're my friend, and I care for you deeply." As her words hung in the air, the curse began to break. The Beast transformed back into his true form, a kind, gentle prince. The castle, once gloomy and cold, filled with light and warmth. The prince, now free from the curse, looked at Bella with gratitude and admiration. "You saw me for who I truly am," he said. "You taught me that love is about kindness, understanding, and forgiveness." Bella and the prince decided to open the castle to the village, inviting everyone to share in its beauty and magic. They helped the poor, cared for the sick, and became leaders who ruled with compassion. The people loved them not because of their wealth or power, but because of their kindness. The moral of the story is that true beauty lies within. It's not how someone looks on the outside, but the goodness of their heart that matters most. We should never judge others by their appearance, and it's never too late to change and become a better person. The magic of Santa's cookies. Every Christmas Eve, the Thompson house buzzed with excitement. 8-year-old Minnie Thompson had a favorite tradition, baking cookies for Santa Claus. She loved everything about Christmas, the sparkling lights, the smell of pine, and especially the magic of Santa. But this year, something truly extraordinary was about to happen. Minnie's kitchen was a whirlwind of activity. As she measured out sugar and flour, she couldn't help but smile, thinking about how much joy her cookies brought to Santa every year. This tradition was her favorite part of Christmas, a way to feel connected to the magic of the season. Her excitement bubbled over as she imagined Santa's face lighting up at the taste of her cookies. The counters were covered in flour, sugar, and colorful sprinkles. A pile of cookie cutters, stars, bells, and reindeer sat ready to go. Her dog Max wagged his tail happily at her feet, as if he knew something magical was about to happen. "Mom, can I add extra chocolate chips?" Minnie asked, holding a bowl of cookie dough. "Of course, sweetheart," her mom said with a smile, adjusting the twinkling fairy lights on the tree. Once the cookies were shaped and on the tray, Minnie slid them into the oven and set the timer. She placed a glass of milk and a plate for the cookies by the fireplace, then wrote her usual note to Santa. Dear Santa, thanks for bringing so much joy every year. I hope you like the cookies. Merry Christmas. Love, Minnie. With everything ready, Minnie headed to bed, her heart full of excitement. But little did she know, the night was just getting started. At midnight, Minnie woke to the sound of soft, jingling bells. A golden light sparkled in her room. She sat up and gasped. Standing at the foot of her bed was Santa Claus himself. His rosy cheeks glowed and his eyes twinkled like stars. He held a shiny sack that sparkled with a magical glow. "Minnie," Santa said warmly, "I've come to thank you." "Santa," Minnie whispered, rubbing her eyes, "is it really you?" "Yes, it's me," Santa said with a hearty laugh. "Every year your cookies bring me so much joy. This year I wanted to thank you in person." Minnie's eyes widened. "You actually eat my cookies?" "Of course," Santa said with a smile. "They're the best in the world, but tonight I have something special for you." Santa reached into his sack and pulled out a golden cookie tin. The tin shimmered like it was made of starlight, with intricate engravings of tiny reindeer and snowflakes that seemed to come alive, twirling and dancing across its surface as it caught the light. It was covered in tiny reindeer and snowflakes that seemed to dance on their own. "This is no ordinary tin," Santa explained. "Anything you bake with it will bring happiness and kindness to everyone who eats it." "Really?" Minnie asked, her eyes shining. "Really," Santa said. "But remember, its magic only works if you bake with love in your heart." Minnie hugged the tin tightly. "Thank you, Santa. This is the best gift ever." Santa wasn't done. "How about we bake something together tonight?" he asked. "Bake? With you?" Minnie could hardly believe her ears. "Yes," Santa said. With a wave of his hand, they were suddenly in the kitchen. The room sparkled with stardust, and the ingredients on the counter shimmered like magic. The oven hummed a cheerful tune, and the air smelled like cinnamon and chocolate. Minnie and Santa got to work, mixing and measuring while laughing together. Santa let Minnie take the lead, and Max barked happily, chasing an enchanted rolling pin around the floor. The flour seemed to dance, and the sugar turned into glowing snowflakes as they baked. "What kind of cookie should we make?" Minnie asked. "Something that makes everyone smile," Santa said. Suddenly, a golden light burst from the tin, creating a recipe that floated in midair. It read, "Starry Night Cookies." "How about these?" Santa asked. "Perfect," Minnie said, her eyes sparkling. They carefully followed the recipe, and soon the kitchen was filled with the most wonderful smell. When the cookies were done, they sparkled as if they held tiny stars. Each cookie had a little constellation that twinkled when you looked closely. When they finished baking, Santa looked at Minnie with a smile. "It's almost time for me to go," he said, "but I have one more surprise." He tapped the golden tin, and the cookies inside multiplied until it was full again. "This tin will never run out as long as you share its cookies generously. Every bite will spread joy and a little Christmas magic." Minnie's eyes filled with happy tears. "Thank you, Santa. I promise to share them with everyone." Santa patted her head. "I know you will." With a wave of his hand, the room returned to normal. Only the golden tin in Minnie's hands and a faint sparkle in the air showed that the magical night had really happened. The next morning, Minnie woke up wondering if it had all been a dream. But there on her nightstand was the golden tin. She smiled and ran to show her parents, who were amazed by its beauty. From then on, Minnie used the tin to bake cookies for friends, family, and anyone who needed a little happiness. Her cookies became famous in the neighborhood, and everyone said they felt better after eating them. Every Christmas Eve, Minnie still left cookies and milk by the fireplace, because no matter how magical her tin was, nothing could replace the joy of baking for Santa. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Once upon a time, in a cozy cottage at the edge of a big green forest, lived a family of bears. There was Papa Bear, big and strong, Mama Bear, warm and wise, and Baby Bear, small and curious. They loved their peaceful home, and every morning they would prepare breakfast together, especially enjoying their favorite treat, porridge. One sunny morning, the bears made a delicious pot of porridge, but it was too hot to eat right away. So they decided to go for a walk in the forest while it cooled down. They closed their door and set off, admiring the sunlight dancing through the trees. Nearby, a young girl named Goldilocks was wandering through the woods. Goldilocks was lively and full of curiosity, but had a habit of not thinking through her actions. She often got so excited about exploring that she didn't always remember to be considerate. As Goldilocks walked along, she saw the charming little cottage belonging to the bear family. She noticed the door was slightly ajar, and her curiosity took over. "I wonder who lives here," she thought. Without stopping to think or ask permission, she stepped inside. The first thing Goldilocks saw was the steaming bowls of porridge on the table. Her tummy rumbled, and she decided to have a taste. She picked up the spoon in the big bowl. "Ouch!" she cried. "This porridge is too hot." She quickly put it down. Next, she tried the medium-sized bowl, but when she tasted it, her face crinkled up. "This porridge is too cold." Finally, she tried the little bowl of porridge. It was just right, and before she knew it, Goldilocks had eaten it all up. With her stomach full, Goldilocks looked around for a place to sit. She spotted 3 chairs in a cozy corner of the room. First, she tried sitting in the big chair. "Oh no," she said, "this chair is too hard." She moved on to the medium chair, but when she sat down, she sank too deep. "This chair is too soft," she grumbled. Finally, she sat in the little chair, which fit her perfectly, but Goldilocks wriggled around so much that she accidentally broke it into pieces. Startled, she quickly stood up, hoping no one had heard. Goldilocks wandered into the next room, where she saw 3 beds neatly made and ready for a nap. She tried lying down on the big bed. "This bed is too hard," she said, shifting uncomfortably. Then she lay down on the medium bed, but it felt too squishy. "This bed is too soft." At last she climbed into the smallest bed. It felt just right, and before she knew it, she was fast asleep. Just then, the bear family returned from their walk. As they stepped inside, Papa Bear noticed something strange. "Someone's been eating my porridge," he rumbled, looking into his bowl. Mama Bear peered into her bowl and gasped, "Someone's been eating my porridge, too." But Baby Bear looked at his empty bowl and wailed, "Someone's eaten all my porridge." The bears were puzzled. Who could have come into their home? Papa Bear then noticed his chair had been moved. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," he growled. Mama Bear checked her chair and nodded. "Someone's been sitting in my chair, too." But Baby Bear looked at his broken chair and cried, "Someone's been sitting in my chair, and now it's broken." The bears moved quietly into their bedroom. Papa Bear's voice was deep and rumbling as he said, "Someone's been sleeping in my bed." Mama Bear shook her head. "And someone's been sleeping in my bed, too." But Baby Bear looked at his bed and whispered in surprise, "Someone's been sleeping in my bed, and she's still here." Goldilocks woke up with a start to see 3 bears staring at her. She was frightened at first, but realized what she'd done. "Oh dear, I'm so sorry," she stammered. "I was just curious, and I didn't mean any harm. I should have asked before coming inside." The bear family looked at each other. They were upset about the porridge, the broken chair, and the surprise guest, but they were also kind-hearted. Papa Bear said, "Young lady, it's important to think before you act. You entered our home without permission and took things that didn't belong to you." Mama Bear added gently, "We would have been happy to share our food if you had asked, but it's always respectful to treat others' homes with care." Goldilocks listened carefully. She felt ashamed but grateful for their forgiveness. "You're right," she said, her cheeks turning pink. "I was too curious and didn't think about how my actions might affect others. I promise to be more considerate from now on." Baby Bear gave her a friendly smile and said, "Mistakes can be learned from. Just remember to respect others." With that, Goldilocks thanked the bears for their kindness and quickly set off back through the forest, vowing to be more thoughtful in her future adventures. And from that day on, whenever Goldilocks felt that urge to explore something new, she would first ask permission and think about how her actions might impact others. Moral of the story: treat others' things with respect and always ask permission before using something that isn't yours. The Sleeping Princess and Her Fairy Godmother. Once upon a time, in the peaceful kingdom of Luminara, a beautiful princess named Aurora was born to King Edmund and Queen Alara. The whole kingdom celebrated her arrival, for Aurora was as radiant as the sunrise. Her parents decided to hold a grand feast and invited the 7 fairy godmothers of the land to bless their little daughter. Each fairy brought a special gift for Aurora. The first fairy gave her beauty, the second a sweet singing voice, the third wisdom, and the fourth kindness. The 5th fairy gifted her grace, while the 6th gave her courage. But just as the 7th fairy, named Flora, stepped forward to bestow her blessing, a chilling gust of wind blew through the castle. In a swirl of black smoke appeared Malvara, the wicked fairy who had not been invited. Her eyes glowed with anger as she pointed her long finger at the cradle. "You did not invite me, but I too have a gift for the princess," she hissed. On her 16th birthday, she will prick her finger on a spinning wheel and fall into an eternal sleep, never to awaken. Gasps of horror filled the room as Malvara disappeared in a puff of smoke. Queen Alara held Aurora close, tears streaming down her face. But Flora, the 7th fairy, stepped forward with a determined look. "Do not despair," Flora said gently. "I cannot undo the curse, but I can change it. If the princess falls into a deep sleep, she will awaken with a kiss of true love." Though relieved by Flora's blessing, the king and queen took every precaution to protect their daughter. They ordered every spinning wheel in the kingdom to be destroyed. Yet, Flora, knowing the curse could not be avoided entirely, decided to keep watch over Aurora. Disguised as a palace gardener, Flora stayed close to the princess, guiding her and protecting her in secret. As the years passed, Aurora grew into a kind and cheerful young woman. She loved the gardens most of all, where she often found Flora tending to the flowers. Aurora didn't know Flora was her fairy godmother, but she loved their conversations. "You have a special light within you," Flora often told her. "No darkness can ever truly dim it." On Aurora's 16th birthday, the palace was filled with excitement. King Edmund and Queen Alara planned a small, safe celebration. But fate had other plans. That afternoon, while exploring the castle, Aurora discovered a narrow staircase leading to a hidden tower. Curious, she climbed the stairs and entered a small room. In the center of the room stood a spinning wheel, its wooden frame glowing faintly in the sunlight. Aurora had never seen such a thing before. As if enchanted, she reached out to touch it. The moment her finger pricked the spindle, a golden light enveloped her, and she fell gently to the floor. The curse had come true. When the king and queen found her, they were heartbroken. Flora revealed her true identity and comforted them. "She is not lost," Flora said. "She sleeps, waiting for true love to awaken her." I will cast a spell to ensure the kingdom waits with her." With a wave of her wand, Flora sent a gentle magic through the castle. Everyone in the kingdom fell into a peaceful sleep, and a thick forest of thorny roses grew around the palace, hiding it from the outside world. Years passed, and the story of the sleeping princess became a legend. One day, a brave and kind-hearted prince named Cedric heard of the tale. He decided to find the castle and wake the princess, for something in his heart told him he was meant to help her. Guided by the whispers of the wind, Cedric found the thorny forest. It was dense and dangerous, but he was determined. Using his sword, he cut through the brambles, the thorns scratching at his armor, but never his resolve. When Cedric reached the castle, he marveled at the stillness of the place. He climbed the staircase of the hidden tower and found Aurora lying on a soft bed, her golden hair spread like sunlight. She looked so peaceful, yet he could feel her longing to awaken. With courage and hope, Cedric knelt beside her and gently kissed her hand. A warm light filled the room, and Aurora's eyes fluttered open. "You've come," she whispered, her voice soft as a breeze. "And I will never leave," Cedric replied with a smile. And as Aurora awoke, so did the entire kingdom. The thorny forest vanished, replaced by blooming roses. King Edmund and Queen Alara rejoiced to see their daughter awake and safe. Aurora and Cedric soon discovered they shared a deep connection, one that grew into love. They were married in a joyful ceremony, and the kingdom celebrated not just their union, but the triumph of hope and courage over darkness. Flora, watching from a distance, smiled. Her task was complete, and she returned to her fairy glen, ready to help wherever her magic was needed. From that day on, Aurora and Cedric ruled the kingdom with kindness and wisdom. The tale of the sleeping princess and her fairy godmother was passed down through the ages, a story of love, bravery, and the magic of never giving up. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, a tale of kindness and courage. Once upon a time, in a kingdom blanketed with snow-capped mountains and lush green forests, there lived a beautiful princess named Snow White. She had skin as fair as snow, lips as red as roses, and hair as black as ebony. Snow White was kind-hearted, gentle, and beloved by all the creatures of the forest. But sadly, her mother, the queen, had passed away when she was very young, and her father, the king, had remarried a beautiful but vain woman who soon became Snow White's stepmother. This new queen was incredibly vain. and possessed a magical mirror that she would often consult. Every day she would stand before it and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And each time the mirror would reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." Hearing this would make the queen smile with satisfaction, as she loved being known as the most beautiful in the land. But as Snow White grew older, her beauty blossomed more and more, and her kind nature made her even more radiant. One day, when the queen asked her mirror the usual question, she was shocked when it replied, "My queen, you are beautiful, it's true, but Snow White is even fairer than you." The queen's heart burned with jealousy and anger. She could not bear the thought of anyone being more beautiful than her, especially not Snow White. In a fit of rage, the queen called for her huntsman and commanded him to take Snow White into the forest, never to return. "Bring back proof that she is gone," she demanded coldly. The huntsman, though loyal to the queen, felt sorry for Snow White, for he knew she was innocent and kind. When they were deep in the forest, he told Snow White of the queen's wicked plan. "Run, Snow White, run far away and never return to the castle," he said, sparing her life. Tears streamed down Snow White's face as she ran through the dark forest. The branches seemed to reach out like claws, and strange shadows danced under the moonlight, making her tremble with fear. Exhausted and frightened, she finally collapsed in a clearing where she lay down to rest. As dawn broke, she awoke to the sound of cheerful birds and noticed a tiny cottage nestled among the trees. It was a charming little house with a thatched roof, flower-filled window boxes, and a tiny chimney puffing out a gentle stream of smoke. Snow White, curious and in need of shelter, carefully opened the door and peeked inside. The cottage was cozy but quite messy, with 7 small chairs around a table and 7 little beds lined up against the walls. "Whoever lives here must be very small," she thought. Seeing that the place was untidy, she decided to clean up as a way of thanking the owners for letting her rest there. She swept the floor, dusted the furniture, and even prepared a simple meal from what little food she could find. As evening approached, the owners of the cottage returned. They were 7 dwarves who worked in the nearby diamond mines. Their names were Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, Bashful, Sneezy, and Dopey. Each dwarf had his own unique personality, and they were all very hardworking and kind-hearted. When they entered their home, they were surprised to find it spotless. "Who has been in our house?" Doc, the eldest dwarf, wondered aloud. The dwarfs began searching the cottage and soon discovered Snow White asleep across 3 of their tiny beds. Startled, they woke her gently, and she sat up, feeling both nervous and relieved. She explained her story, telling them about her stepmother, the queen, and how she had narrowly escaped. The dwarfs felt sorry for Snow White and offered her a place to stay, provided she helped them with chores around the house. Snow White gladly agreed, grateful to have found such kind friends. Days turned into weeks, and Snow White lived happily with the dwarfs. They would go off to the mines each day, and she would wave goodbye, reminding them to be careful. Then she would clean, cook, and tend to the little garden outside the cottage. She grew to love the dwarfs dearly, and they adored her in return. Snow White's laughter and warmth filled their home with joy. However, back at the castle, the wicked queen had once again asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" To her horror, the mirror replied, "Though you, my queen, are fair, there is someone with skin like snow, lips red as a rose, and hair black as ebony, who is now the fairest of them all, Snow White, who dwells with the 7 dwarfs." Enraged that Snow White was still alive, the queen devised a sinister plan to get rid of her once and for all. Using her dark magic, the queen disguised herself as an old peddler woman. She prepared a basket of poisoned apples, their red skin shining temptingly. and made her way into the forest toward the dwarf's cottage. When Snow White was alone, the queen, disguised as the old woman, knocked on the door. "Good day, my dear. Would you like to try one of my delicious apples?" Snow White, always polite and trusting, did not suspect anything and accepted the apple. She took a bite, and as soon as the piece touched her lips, she fell to the floor, unconscious. The wicked queen cackled with delight, certain that she was now the fairest in the land once more. She disappeared back to the castle, confident her plan had worked. That evening, when the dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White lying on the floor, still and pale. They tried everything they could to wake her, but it